Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ask Better Questions, the podcast where we delve into leadership and personal development. I'm your host, Peter, and today I'll be explaining the dangers of a one-size-fits-all or even most approach to leadership. So let's dive in. But before we do, for those who are new here, I'm Peter Adams. I have over 20 years experience in leadership and consulting. I'm a published author and a speaker in the leadership space, and my mission is to help excellent leaders become exceptional leaders through a better mindset. Now, before we start today's episode, I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Colour4 Solutions. Colour4 Solutions offer leadership training for people who have reached a ceiling in their leadership journey and want to achieve more without dedicating substantial time and effort. The other day, I was discussing my work at Colour4 Solutions with a friend, and he said, "So you sell leadership training," which is always a dangerous way to start a conversation. And then he followed that up with, "So what's your secret? What's the secret for leadership?" And what he wanted, what followed was a frustrating discussion, for him at least, where he insisted I distill years of experience and knowledge into a few paragraphs that he could use at the next dinner party he attends or something similar. Now, aside from my frustration at not typically being invited to swanky dinner parties, I became aware that this friend had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars each year on his own training and demanding executives that worked for him to do similar. He was convinced that there's a magic bullet, a single approach, one solitary way that once known and executed will revolutionize any team and empower any manager to achieve superhuman feats of leadership. I can distill a lot of things. That's not something I can do. So I don't think there's anyone on the planet that can do that. I can distill leadership into its key components. And so during our discussion, I named a few of those components to him. The two that I named to him were trust and competence. Probably the most important two. Trust and competence are what you need as a leader to be able to lead a team. In varying amounts. But how you arrive with both of those in sufficient quantities and intact to lead a team, now that's where the secret sauce that he's looking for would be found. Now, rather than feed his delusions, I instead told him, think of 5 different teams. And I opened the local newspaper and we selected 5 teams at random from random pages. The best road crew in the state. Now, these guys, concrete and asphalt layers, they've got construction in their veins, these guys. Proud and competent engineers, and they make the finest roads in the state, okay? There was another page towards the back of the paper, which is where you should start reading it. The best basketball team at the moment in the state. They're totally dominating the division. Another team was a ground crew at the local airport and seamlessly working with the tower and the airlines to guide planes to and from runways and prepare them for flights. Restocking and managing luggage, in addition to hundreds of safety checks and procedures. There was also a local thespian production led by a committee that manages everything from rehearsal, set design, construction, venue hire, both front and back house, all those sorts of things, costumes, the full box and dice. And lastly, there was a local surgical team that was led by a renowned heart surgeon. And they've pioneered a new way of assisting patients through the recovery process for open heart surgery. Now, what do all of these teams have in common? They are very, very, very good at what they do. And they are considered some of the best in the world at what they do. Great. So I asked him, which was the greatest team of these? And which team had the least or most challenging job? Which team had would have been the hardest to lead? And which team faces the biggest challenges? And you might say the heart surgeons, but the heart surgeons have trained for decades to get to this point and have seen a lot of what they would come across. It's difficult to say which team would have the biggest challenges because we don't know. And we arrived at the answer, we don't know, to any of these questions. And even having read the articles in the paper and knowing a few things about the teams, we just don't know because we don't know sufficient amounts about these teams to be able to comment. So we know laughably little. What we do know is that no other team would be completely interchangeable with any of the other teams. We don't see the medical team playing basketball. We did think that might be funnier than watching the road crew put on a theatrical performance of Midsummer Night's Dream. One thing we agreed on was that nobody wanted the road crew or the thespians performing open heart surgery. In fact, that's probably best that nobody but the professionals even think about doing that one. So how many of us have stopped to think why? Why are some leaders successful with one team and then fail with another team? And why are some projects successful and the very next identical project a failure with exactly the same team, same leadership, same people, just new client, come in, do X, or new servers, come in, do this, create this, and deploy? Well, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Life is complex. There simply isn't one answer. I'd love to tell you, here it is, the answer to life, the universe, and everything. This is how you lead people. 42. But sadly, seeking this answer only shows that nobody really understands the question. Situations and teams are dynamic, ever-changing. Yes, there are overarching principles that apply, and yes, some of these are easily learned and applied. Others take decades and years of training and experience. But applying the simple ones only get you so far. Ultimately speaking, it's the time under your belt, the practice that you've put in that will get you to the desired result. There are many, many academics who know what to do to lead a business. They are incapable of leading because academically they know what it is that needs to happen. They just don't have the skills because they've never had to apply them. Becoming a student of leadership and applying yourself to leading your team in the very best way you can, making it your life's mission, is the only way to ensure you give yourself a good chance. But even then, leaders fail. So the takeaway here isn't that you can give your all and fail. The takeaway here is that if you do give your all and fail, this isn't the end of the story. Every single team here had existed for at least 10 years and had gotten gradually better and better and better until they were considered some of the best in their industry. As Winston Churchill once said, or at least is credited as having said, success is moving from failure to failure with enthusiasm. So find your enthusiasm and get to it. Now, I hope you found these insights valuable and actionable, but if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love to see a like and subscribe. More importantly, share it with somebody who you feel needs to hear this message. I'll be back next week with more. Until then, keep asking better questions, and remember, leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. Take care, and I'll see you back here next week.